Right now, President Trump is in Kenosha, Wisconsin, a city still traumatized by the police shooting of Jacob Blake and the chaotic street clashes that left 2 people dead just days later. Live pictures here as he's sitting at a high school having this roundtable flanked with law enforcement. But it's the street violence that the president is really focused on during his visit, not what happened to Jacob Blake and the anger that it's unleashed beyond Kenosha and what led up to the shooting. He began the day, in fact, attacking NBA players on Twitter, blasting them for taking a stand against police violence by leading a boycott of games that spilled over into other sports. The administration has dismissed the NBA protests, scoffing at them as silly, while suggesting sports has no place in politics. But the athletes behind the movement are more than just celebrities. They are truly using their voices as they too deal with the emotional grief that comes from witnessing police brutality. So many of them too are parents. And my next guest is Kweku Ramel Smith. He has worked as a psychologist in public schools and veterans hospitals and with pro football players and recently the NBA Milwaukee Bucks. So Kweku, an honor, sir. Welcome.
It's an honor to be here, Brooke. Thanks for having me.
Snapshot of the nation right now is you have this fatal pandemic, this polarizing election, social and racial unrest. It's heavy. And you have the president today, Kweku, despite the wishes of local officials and Jacob Blake's own families in Kenosha, and you have been in communities like these. What impact do you think this visit will have?
We don't know yet, but we know that just from a level of anticipatory trauma, everybody is extremely nervous. Everybody in Kenosha was like everything was quelling down. That's why the mayor asked, said, listen, your presence would not be a help at this time. But with this president, we know that was all of the ammunition he needed to really come. So when you say, what is it going to do? Whenever you have any type of uprising, usually things don't start to happen at night. So right now, you're going to have the calm people. You're going to have the peaceful protesters. I think the real tell will come later on tonight.
What about Jacob Blake's family? It's my understanding you've actually met with Jacob Blake's uncle. Will you share some of that conversation?
Yeah, you know what? I'm just so amazed at the resiliency and the power of the family, specifically his uncle. When we talked on Sunday, we were talking about strategizing actually for the visit of Trump, what we could do to be able to really to reduce the noise. And you would think that after your nephew was shot 7 times in a very humane fashion, when he was strapped to the bed like an animal after he wasn't able to walk, that they would actually like the violence, but they were all about the peace, what they could do to bring the people down. What they want to do is to hold those officers accountable, but they wanted the land to be at peace. They said that's what his nephew wants, and that's what they're trying to promote.
Kweku, I know that you've been doing, all of this work in so many of these communities, and you were on the front lines after George Floyd's death earlier this summer. You see all of these people, black, brown, white, young, old, protesting, feeling perhaps change is in the air, and then yet, in time, another person of color gets killed, and the cycle seems to repeat itself.
Yeah, this is America, and this is what it is. But you know what? I think this is a different time. Every time you have these different epochs in time, you have these special moments where you say, you know what? This is not exactly like the same. And when you talk about, I call it the unholy trinity right now, because not only do we have the pandemic, we have the social justice unrest, but we have people who just had life problems before this happened. So we put all of those things in together. It creates a recipe for everybody saying, you know what? Something has to change. And so you say, we look at those powerful moments from the Civil War. We look at these powerful moments that come after the civil rights movement. And we look at this, and this has that same type of feeling. And you know why? Because if you do like a reverse look in history, you look at Bacon's Rebellion, when all of the people collectively, poor people, came together to kind of rise up after that aristocrat state, saying, hey, they have us divided. There's no reason for us to be divided. If we all come together, we can really make this true America what it needs to be. And so I think we're at a time right now where we're not trying to make a more perfect union. We're really trying to create that perfect union. Can it happen? Nobody knows. But I know this is a special time that's different from any other time in the recent past.
It's special, it's challenging, it's, at times hopeful. And through all of this, as I mentioned a second ago, you have these ball players, these professional athletes who are wearing these social justice causes, quite literally on their sleeves. We know that the Milwaukee Bucks boycotted Game 5 of their first round series against the Magic last week, the Orlando Magic. And it was the Bucks' way of making a statement against racial injustice and police brutality. Kweku, what do you think of the role that these athletes are really, playing in this overall movement? And how would you advise them? Because it's not lost on any of us that so many of them have young black boys and girls, and this is personal for them.
Oh, you know what it is. And when we talk about a special movement, what does this remind you of? We think about the untimely passing of Chadwick Boseman, and we think about that iconic character that kind of got his career launched into a different stratosphere as Jackie Robinson. So we know that athletes do have a great place to play in politics. Athletes do have a role in change in society because when you look in the athletic arena, that is when people can come together of very different, varying backgrounds and can forget about all of those seamless demographics that change us, that separates us, and brings us together. So now when you see an athlete who has the revolutionary power of a Cassius Clay, who we love as Muhammad Ali, who's saying, I'm willing and ready to give it all, that's when you know it's something different, because sometimes athletes can play it safe because they have a small window to make that money. They don't want to be able to upset the owners. They don't want to upset their base because they understand what it is. But a true revolutionary is ready to die. They're willing to give their life. They're willing to give their name. They're willing to give their reputation. They're willing to give their money, just like Muhammad Ali. And with the Milwaukee Bucks, of course, I'm a bit biased, not only because I worked there, but because I grew up cheering for them. But what they said is, we're willing to die for this one game. They were going to forfeit that game. But when all of the other teams saw that, they said, we will stand in solidarity with you. So whether it was a boycott, whether it was going to be just a moment in time to pause for what was going on, what you see is athletes saying, hey, we know we have a voice. We understood the pressure that was on us coming back in the bubble. We didn't want to be a distraction. So we're going to make sure that the power we have now, we're going to leverage it no matter what it may cost. And now, whenever you're dealing with a large group of people, it's hard to get on one page and be in concert and symphony. But what we do know is this, that all of the athletes are tired. And not only did we see it in Major League Baseball after the Milwaukee Bucks and the NBA, not only did we see it in the WNBA, but we saw it in Major League Soccer. And when you saw it in National League Hockey, a league that is predominantly white and known for having racist actors, that's when you know what, this is something special. So we go back to that beginning. How do we know this is a time? It takes that one person to be the Crispus Attucks that's willing to come up to sacrifice themselves, but then for everybody else to come on. So this is a beautiful spirit, but what the athletes are saying, we can't do this by itself. So it's not only the athletes and entertainers, but it's the people like you and me, Brooke, who are going to also help and do our part. It's only if we all do this together that we can make a change. But I applaud the athletes for using that microphone, that podium, to do
Yes,
something
yes.
special and to bring that word out.
Stepping forward and helping lead the change. We all play a role in this. Kweku Ramel
We all
Smith,
have a role.
bless you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Queen.